now that I'm in this phase of my life, like I just want to document everything and put it online because I don't care. It's like, because my whole take is that I personally believe that anybody can become successful, like building wealth wise. I can't say on anything else. If you're willing to put in the work, and in school they called all that shit plagiarism, but in real life that's just called living. It's like, people steal like an artist all the time. It's like in school they call it plagiarism, but in real life that's just what businesses do. You copy what the best business does and you apply it to your business because it costs so much money to try to explore or discover something new. Like that costs money. That's why everybody like copies the same business practices. And so in real life, it's like, like everything that I'm doing with Uber, I want people to know that they can make that amount of money. It's just, are you willing to put in that work? And whatever else I discover. Because, like, for the longest time, like, I was very aware of, like, cancel culture and all that stuff, especially with my past. And I didn't want I didn't want to have to deal with any of the bullshit. It's like, you work for, like, remember when I tried to apply for that Indian restaurant and I got, like, rejected from it? Yeah. It's like, because they told them that, I don't know what they showed the manager or whoever it was, but they rejected me. So ever since then, like, I was very cautious about what companies I decided to work for and like who's still gonna hire me regardless if somebody tries to call them up, or like I try to be secret about it. But now that I know that I can make money from driving Uber, and even worst case scenario, I can't drive Uber, there's so many other gigs that I can pick up and make money. It's like it's not even a question of like what I want to do anymore. It's just like, how much time do I want to work? So that's not an issue anymore. But anyway, so I guess because I don't know if it was you or somebody else that was confused about what or who I am. Like, because some people thought I was like Chinese, some people thought I was like Cambodian only or whatever it is. But so long story short, both my parents, my dad and my mom's side of the family, they are Cambodian Chinese, and so the reason why they're Cambodian Chinese is so, just to put the historical context, back in 1897, so like the end of the 19th century, Japan invaded China, so it was the Sino-Chinese War. And so for the longest time, China has fought the same way they've done for thousands of years, which is that they just take all their young men and just throw at whoever's fighting them or whatever. And so my great great grandparents on both sides of the family, from what I understand, they didn't want to get caught up in the war, and so they decided to immigrate from China all the way down to Cambodia to try to escape from all that shit. And so that's the reason why I have Chinese heritage, because in our family we still celebrate Chinese New Year even though we're Cambodian. So we do Chinese New Year and Cambodian New Year. So that's a little backstory as to why when I say that I'm Chinese Cambodian, it's not that I know that my parents are from Cambodia, but their grandparents are from China. So my great grandma was the last person in my family to speak Chinese. That's the reason why I know that I'm Chinese. Like, from like the people that did the ancestry DNA in our family and all that other shit, yada yada yada. At some point, I want to trace my family tree back to see how far back it goes. But that's as far as I know. Like, my great great grandparents were Chinese, 100%. So anyway, fast forward to, I already explained. So basically, dad's side of the family was very similar, where they had to, flee from Cambodia because the communists took over. The immigration story was, just pretty straightforward. They had to seek refugee in like the Philippines, like refugee camp, because that's where the United States were taking refugees from war because the Vietnam War was going on and the genocide was going on in Cambodia. My dad's side of the family went to like the Thailand camp, so they immigrated from the Thailand camp to the U.S. And so, when you're seeking refugee status, the United States allowed it, and so you had like two sanctuary cities you could pick from at the time. So you either could pick from going to Long Beach, California, or like Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And so both my parents happened to pick Philly. And so when they first immigrated over, what's it called? And let me know if I'm boring you at all, because like I know I can talk a lot. I just don't want to, put you to sleep if it's not, okay. Um, so anyway, they so when they immigrated to the U.S. and they had their own separate immigration stories. I know more about my mom's side of the family's immigration story than I do my dad's. Um, but basically, my so after my grandfather was killed, my grandma remarried, and my grandma and him had kids. So there's like my mom and her siblings, and then and her siblings. So like some of them are half, some of them are of the same generation, whatever. And so this is important for later because this is what I'm gonna this ties into my story anyway. Um, so when they came to the US, they started off in North Philly, living in like the shitty apartments where like all the immigrants were coming in. At the time, like gang violence was pretty bad. Like I think a lot of people like to complain about what's going on today in Philly, but it was nothing compared to like what my parents had to go through. Like it was bad enough to the point where they had to have neighborhood watches, and usually the person that'd be on neighborhood watch duty is either former military or former police. And so like they would basically so they would basically sit on the corner to make sure all the kids were safe, and anytime they would cross the street, they would escort, the kids. It's like, my mom was telling me stories about how like, just to get to school so that so basically, and I'm not saying this to be racist, it was the blacks and the Latinos that were causing like a lot of the problems because of the gangs. And so like, they didn't like the Asians very much, and so they always were trying to cause trouble. So like there was a vivid story that my mom told me that there was like a whole bunch of Latino people trying to cause my uncle trouble when they were in high school. And so they came at my uncle with a knife, and my mom, like, my mom kicked the knife out of the hand and, got the teachers to, like, get those kids out from the gym. But, that, like, that's how, it's like, that at the time, like, the whole gang shit was, like, what everybody was into at the time. So, like, it's whatever. I don't, like, that's not relevant to this. But, like, they were living in, like, the, North Philly, which is, like, the poor part of Philly. It's like, you've got, I would say like northeast and North Philly was like where like a lot of the ghetto stuff started. And so growing up in that kind of environment's not really good, but I mean what can you do when you're an immigrant comes to the United States? You don't know any English, you don't have much skills, and you got to take whatever shitty job you can. So like my grandparents, my mom, their siblings worked whatever shitty jobs they could, whether it was, going to the back of restaurants washing dishes, or working in the frozen chicken factory like Purdue or whatever, and picking the frozen chicken feathers off so that we have what we have at Walmart and shit. They also worked in New Jersey, working in the blueberries and the strawberry fields, picking them alongside their Mexican friends. And so it was like that's what they did to scrape by. But when my mom came to the United States, she was around the age of going into high school. So she was a ninth grader going into high school. I think it was William Penn High School. And so, she doesn't know any English, and so the only thing that she had as a, ESL student was that she had a Cambodian to English dictionary. It's like what would normally take us like an hour to get homework done would take her like 4. And so, she studied really fucking hard. There was this one English teacher that really became her like mentor, so to speak. Like, she really helped her out with everything, revising her papers, taking her to the library. She was a very good teacher, and she's a family friend for us. Like we always like I think it's like every year, or every 2 times a year, we take her out to eat. Just because like she did a lot for my mom, and I very much respect that. She's like 70 something years old now. She was a teacher in Philadelphia school district, and she's gonna pass away at some point. And I want to make sure that we do as much as we can with her before she dies, because her brother already passed away. There's nobody else in her family that's alive. She's the only one left. And so, but anyway, when my mom was going through high school, despite all the hardships that she had to go through, as not knowing any English and having to work to help the family, they all shared like a 1 bedroom apartment in North Philly. They one night they had their window shot out because there's like a drive-by shooting or whatever. And so like they knew that they had to move out of Philly as soon as they could, because they never wanted to stay there permanently. But my mom managed to graduate high school, number 3 of her class, and she was also doing like artwork. So she was very good, very talented with art, to the point where her artwork was put up in the Philadelphia Art Museum, and she was winning a lot of awards. She was getting a lot of money for it. And she would use like the prize money or whatever to just buy food for the family, or she would get like what's called free SEPTA bus tokens to like take the family wherever they needed to go. She would just share it with anybody in the house, basically is what it was. Um, and so she managed to graduate number 3 of her class, and she got a full ride scholarship from Mayor Ed Rendell from the city of Philadelphia to go to whatever university she wanted to, and so she ended up going to Temple University. Um, and so she graduated college. It was in college that she met my dad, and so that's how they hit it off. Um, and so basically, my mom's like was always a hard worker. She's very stubborn, but she's also a very hard worker. It's like nothing. I'm not dinging my mom, but obviously everybody's got their own flaws. Everybody's got their own problems, and I'm gonna explain. Like you gotta understand. I'm not trying to throw anybody in my family under the bus. Like I'm at the point where I understand and I can take the time to empathize with other people. That doesn't mean I sympathize, because I think a lot of people confuse the word empathy and sympathy. It's like sympathy is that you feel for somebody. No, empathy is that I can put myself into their shoes and understand, but that doesn't mean I agree with their choices or what they did. Like, if that makes any sense. But anyway, so anyway, uh, so how do we? So anyway, yeah. So my mom graduated. She, went through the whole phase that everybody goes through when you graduate from college. You're looking for a job, whatever it is. She landed a good job with a good company, and she was working her ass off. She was working like 60 hours a week. She got married to my dad, and then they had me. While my mom was pregnant with me, she worked really hard to get a house out in the suburbs, and she was working overtime while pregnant with me. Like, and she made the money so that they could put the down payment on the house to get the lot and all that stuff, because it was like a new development that was being built or whatever. And she worked her ass off. I was born, and basically by the time I was 2 to 3 years old, like when I could babble, despite my mom working nights, because she worked night shift, so she worked very I can't say the job because it's a lot of confidentiality around the work that she does. So like I for purposes, I don't want to I but I don't have to worry too much about it. Like I'm not too worried about it, but just for her privacy's sake. But yeah, she worked a high security clearance job. Let's put it that way. And so anyway, but she worked nights though. She had to do the night shift. So she would like go to work at like midnight and come back home at like 9 a.m. And so, but despite that, she would come home, like, she would keep me in the living room with, like, the baby cage up. She'd put on, like, TV, and I'd be watching, like, PBS, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Sesame Street. My family didn't believe in cable, so we never had cable. And she would, like, read books like Green Eggs and Ham with me and all that other shit. Um, but yeah, I grew up with that kind of a childhood, because I started out over in Collegeville, over in Springford School District. I don't know if you've ever been to Collegeville before, but it's like when you take that road, you ever gone to Arnold's Go Kart or like the Target up there? It's like that exit off on Oaks. That's where I used to live. So I went to my first elementary school was Oaks Elementary School before I went to Cayley. So this was kindergarten. So before kindergarten, right? All the parents in the neighborhood that we lived in heard about my mom, and because they heard how well my mom was like educating me, they all, and the neighborhood we lived in, like they were all like doctors and surgeons, all these rich people, whatever. And so they all were like, trying to say like, oh, we can pay you to tutor our kids. And so my mom was like, no, I'm not doing anything with kids. So like, because she didn't want to get, like parents can sue people, you know what I mean? And so, like, she didn't want to deal with the headache of that. Like, she told me, like, I didn't take it because, first of all, I already have my own 2 kids. And second of all, I don't want to have to deal with the parents suing me because I raised their kid a different way than my style, than whatever the fuck. Like, I could totally understand that because, American parents don't understand how, Asian or Indian parents raise their kids. It's like, I get it. Um, but anyway, so, like, every single time I was going to the bus stop to go to school, all the parents would like clamor around me and just give me their like adult books to read, because they thought what my mom did was that she had me memorize books, right? And so that to suss me out, they're like, okay, read this book. And so I was like reading all this fucking shit to them, and they're like, holy shit, like please, we'll pay you whatever you want, just please tutor our kids. My mom was like, no. So when I went to school, right? So this was kindergarten. I went to preschool because my mom, put me through daycare, whatever. Daycare was an interesting experience because I didn't grow up with any. I didn't have any play dates growing up as kids. So already from the get go, I was very socially isolated because my parents didn't believe in having friends over. Like the only friend that I had growing up as a kid was like my neighborhood, literally my neighbor, and my dad was very controlling too. That's another thing. Um, and so it was very lonely growing up because the only people that I got to interact with were anybody within my family or like my childhood friend. Like that's it. Anybody that was like close immediately to the family. Other than that, nobody else. And so because of how socially isolated I was, every single time I got to break away and get away from my family to go talk to other people, I would just yap. It was because I was born an introverted kid. I'm telling you. But the only reason why I became extroverted is because I was so. It's like when you're so hungry for food, you'll eat anything. Like for me, I was socially starved. I had nobody to talk to. And like even in preschool, it was hard to get along with all the other kids because I just never had that opportunity. So when I talked, I talked. But then like, if nobody like cared or nobody was interested, it was just like, "Oh, I'll just play with you, but like I'm not going to push anything beyond that." And so like my mom noticed this behavior because every single time I was coming home from preschool, I was always tired, I was always out of energy. And so when you put your kid into preschool or whatever, daycare, you can go in and observe what's going on with your kid. So like my mom went to go observe what was going on with me, and like every single time it was snack time, like they would give you like milk and cookies. I would basically just give all my cookies to all the other kids, and I would just drink the milk, and I would just like go nap and sleep. It's like every single time I was coming home, I was like, what's it called? My mom was like, she was always wondering why I was always trying to eat food at home, even though she was told that they would give food to the kids, like snacks to the kids at the school. Like I gave mine away. I didn't fucking, and I didn't know this. Okay, I don't remember this part. My mom had to tell me about this. Okay, so I'm not saying this as like a humble brag or anything. This is just how I was growing up as a kid. So like I didn't know, and the only reason why I know about my nature is because one of the things I very much appreciate about my dad was that from everything from my first birthday all the way up until I had to kick my dad out when I think I told you already, my parents are divorced. I had to kick my dad out because he just wasn't treating my mom well. Um, I have the bag of all this. Like he would use the old Sony videotape recorders, like the little mini VHS tapes, and so like I have everything from when I was born to like, I would say we stopped doing that by around the time I was like 10 or 11. That's when that about stopped because I got a computer, I got into Minecraft and all that other shit. But that's I'll catch you up to speed on that. But anyway, that was what happened then. See. I just want to make sure I'm backtracking and not missing anything. So yeah, so we're now back up to, so that was preschool. We go to kindergarten, where when I entered in the fall, so here's how it was. I make friends really easily in the sense that as a 5-year-old kid, I was very talkative. I was always happy to interact with people because I never had friends. I never really had like any sort of like childhood like friends beyond the childhood friend that I mentioned earlier that I had. But other than that, like literally nobody. Like besides my neighbor, only if there was ever a family event where as a kid you can't control whether you're going to a family gathering or to a wedding. So when you're taken there, what are you gonna do? You're gonna play around with all the other kids that are around your age. At least that's child psychology, right? So like that's what I understand. So like other than that, like I was a very like school bookworm kind of kid. Like the only things that I had growing up that were my like escape from studying was like Saturday morning cartoons. So like at the time was like Fox Kids, Kids WB, whatever was on local channel on Saturday morning. So like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Mutant Ninja Turtles, Sonic the Hedgehog, whatever. Like Dragon Ball when that tried to come out. Like that was literally the only things I got to watch growing up as a kid. And like my parents bought me like a stuffed animal Pikachu, and that got me into Pokemon. I bought Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I got into Legos. But that was about it. Like I had nobody to share it with. Like I was trying to get my cousins and people in my family to play Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon, but like, nobody, it's when you have such a small circle of people, right? It's like, you're not going to have that many personalities to interact with. So you're not going to meet people that like the same stuff that you do. So it always feels like you're trying to force somebody or get somebody to like the things that you do. But I never liked that feeling. So like I like for the introverted nature that I had a part of myself when I was younger, I would just usually just keep to myself beyond that. It's like, when people would like, like, I'm not, they don't show interest, like I just shut myself off. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna bother you. It feels like I'm forcing you to do something. I already didn't like when my parents or my family tried to force me to do something, so I'm not gonna do that to you. Um, but it led to a very lonely life because growing up in kindergarten, like that's the only escape that I had from my house. Like, I'm going to school for 8 hours. I'm gonna fucking talk the shit out of everybody in my school. So, but the problem was that going to public school, and the reason why I disdain and I hate fucking public school was this was around the time period they started training teachers to identify for, the mental health awareness stuff. And so, because I was getting all my math and reading work done faster than all my classmates, guess what I did with my free time? I would yap to everybody in the class. And so it got to the point where the teachers were like, like, I don't know if this kid has mental issues or something else. So they basically pulled me aside and they gave me an aptitude test to see like what was up with me, if I was on the spectrum or something or whatever it is. I don't know. And to this day, I have never been fully medically diagnosed for if I have some sort of mental condition or whatever it is. If I do, great. I don't care. But for the most part, so they gave me the aptitude test, and it turns out that I had the literacy rate of a middle schooler, just like sub high schooler. Because they gave me like all this reading and math tests to see what like where I was, like when you take an entrance exam for school and like they want to see like what classes or like easiest example is that when you go to community college and they want to know what classes you don't need to take for your prerequisites for like your general education courses, like Monco does this with people. So when I took this test at the time at my age, I basically tested out of all of like elementary school, most of middle school, and I was at like a high school level or whatever. And here's the deal, and the kicker to this is that I was not born a genius. I am not born with a fucking high IQ. And the only reason why I would ever attribute any of my success in life to anything was literally because my parents made me learn through repetition. Like my childhood growing up was like reciting my 100 times tables. Like I would say like 2 times 1 equals 2, 2 times 2 equals 4, 2 times 3 equals 6. That was literally like that on top of the reading. Like my escape was reading. So like, well actually no, this is before. I'll tell you after. So just remind me, or no, I'll talk about it. So like summer in Upper Marion School District. Like this at the library, there's the reading competition or whatever. I explained that. That's how. But for the most part, growing up as a kid, like my escapism was, watching whatever was on Saturday morning cartoons. Anytime there's a family event and I was over at like a family friend's or family's house, if they had video games, I'd play it. That's how I got introduced to video games growing up as a kid. Like my first was like Game Boy Advance games, and whatever anybody had. Like my uncle had like an Xbox Classic, so I played whatever the Halo. I played like Halo 2. I played Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. At the dentistry that I went to growing up as a kid, the one near where we live, they had a game booth with like a Nintendo 64, and so I got to play like Pokemon Snap. I got to play whatever games they had in there. But like that's it. Like other than that, if I was at home, I was studying. That was it. Or my dad was trying to force me to learn some sort of sport that I wasn't necessarily interested in. But that's the reason why I was an athletic kid growing up. Like he got me to play golf, he got me to play baseball, he got me to play soccer. Like he was always doing that stuff with me because I think he just wanted me to do sports. Because like growing up, him and his brother, they played soccer hard. And it was to the point where like my dad's brother, his younger brother, got to the point where he almost got scouted for the U.S. Olympic team. So like that's basically like that was like why they tried to like put sports onto me. But like for me, like I was okay with sports, but like they could never like explain to me why it should have mattered to me. Like I never had any passion for sports. I just did it because your parents just put you in it. It's like, okay, you just do it, whatever, blah blah blah. Like it's not worth it because you're gonna argue with your parents, whatever. So I just went with the flow because like that's what kids do. It's like you're not, if you're raised in that kind of environment, kids are seen, they're not listened to. But yeah, so like that was I'm just trying to catch you up with kindergarten. So kindergarten, and so yeah, this is like there was like there's a girl that invited me to her birthday in kindergarten. This is the first time anybody ever invited me to go to their birthday. Like I never went to another kid's birthday outside of like, some sort of family event or whatever it was. And so like, it was a very interesting time. I still remember it. It was like at a bowling alley, and I was deciding what gift to get her. I got like at the time like Aladdin was coming out on DVD, and so like I got like an Aladdin DVD and I gave it to her. And I remember the memory specifically. What's it called? I don't know. Like what set me off weird was that like she like gave me a kiss on the cheek. As like a kid, like you don't know how to process that shit. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I don't fucking know. Like, what's a kiss on the cheek from like a random girl stranger? And as a kid growing up, you don't think anything about like sex or relationships or anything like that. You're just a fucking kid. So you're like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. But I remember the kids I made friends with, even for the small amount of time that I spent with them for that year. I can't remember my kindergarten teacher's name, but I remember every other teacher after that. Um, But yeah, so that was kindergarten, and by the time my school year was over, this was when my dad wanted to start a business, and so my mom was working really hard for this house, but this is where like I didn't understand it until I got older, but my dad and my mom like actually fought a lot. I didn't even know like what that was. To me, I just thought that that's just what parents do. I thought it was just normal. Um, and so, I observed it. It was whatever, yelling or whatever. They tried to keep it away from me and, my younger sibling. But, at some point when you start understanding how people behave and stuff, you start like catching on like, okay, this is not normal. But anyway, so this is important because when my dad wanted to try to start the business, he basically argued with my mom on selling the house. And so the house that we lived in, like the suburbs house that she worked her ass off for so that she could escape from the city, they had to sell it. And so we had to move. That's why I moved over to King of Prussia. So that's why I moved to the Upper Marion School District, and that's why I went to Cayley Elementary. So like, so not only was I socially starved as a kid, any of the relationships that I had with anybody in my prior school district, I had to start from scratch. So, I went to Cayley, knew none of the kids from preschool, knew none of the kids during kindergarten as the new first grader. And the same shit happened again, where I had to reintroduce myself. But I was, I didn't know why I was getting my classwork done faster than my classmates because they didn't really. No, go ahead, go ahead. No, no, it's okay, it's okay. I'll wait until you get back. Take your time. I'm gonna clip part one of that for the stream.